I am back, and welcome to the Lose 20 Pounds in 30 Days Weight Loss channel. I'm nutritionist Rob, and we're going to do part 7 of It's Not Your Weight, You Are Overweight. It's just not your fault, everyone, but we do have some responsibility. So part 7, we're going to talk about pretty heavy topic, and what we're going to talk about is how the food industry tries to force their reality of their foods, their toxic foods, onto us. They're trying to force their reality, which really means that man-made foods are just as healthy as foods from God's table. Their man-made foods are just as healthy as the foods from God's table. Now, most of us do understand that we need to eating plant material, fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, grains, etc. We understand that. But for some reason, we know the reason, God's foods today are not as appealing as man-made comfort foods. It's just the way it is. Either they're equal or these man-made foods are actually above. We prefer to eat these foods. And if you listen to the other videos, I explain this. And we're going to continue to explain this, because once you have this attitude of that their foods are just as healthy, you will continue to gain weight. You have to separate yourselves from this dysfunction that their foods should be in your house. No disrespect, Americans. No disrespect what I'm going to say. And most people, believe in some type of higher being, God, who you want to say, whoever the name is that you want to call a higher being. And you go to different houses of worship, and there's hundreds of thousands of churches and synagogues and mosques, millions all over the world. But all I know is in America, Americans do not truly believe in God's foods. They do not. And I've been in the churches. And I see what they're eating. They believe the foods in the supermarkets and fast foods are a part of our health. The food industry wants us to believe the foods in the supermarkets, the fast foods, many restaurants, are a part of our health. That these foods are safe. And we think these foods are safe because we believe everything that they say. We don't even have an ability to think for ourselves. We just eat, we just do what they say. So we have an inability to even conceive reality when it comes to foods. And they're saying, listen, these are the foods you should be buying. These foods are safe. You can eat foods from God's table. You can have your salads, whatever, got no problems. But these man-made foods are more important for you to have in your home. If you don't have them, something's wrong with you. You mean you don't have any junk food? What you got to eat? You got any chips? People make you feel as though you're doing something wrong because you don't have no junk in your house. This is the mentality we have. Basically, they want you to think you can eat both and still maintain optimum health. I mean, they also try to destroy the fruits and vegetables, but we'll get into that later on. Now, here's another thing. If we expose them because they think they're God. And we're questioning the ingredients of their foods. They'll say, "How don't you ever question what we're doing to the foods? Ever. How dare you investigate our products? These are the foods that you should be eating. We are God. Oh, you're picking on us." So now we start picking on them, and they're the victims. It's amazing. So who are these people who say they are gods? Well, there's some people out there that most people don't know, and their names they're called flavorists. Flavorist or flavorist. These are the people that are producing the chemicals that goes in our foods. It's a very secretive society. It's very underground. As a matter of fact, 80% of the supermarkets, 80% of the foods in the supermarkets are produced by chemists or biochemists called flavorists. Flavorists. And what their job is to create a need for their so-called comfort foods, so that you can override God's foods. God's foods are always going to be there, but you want their foods more than God's foods. It's a very sophisticated science that we're going to get deep into on the next video. And see, they spray these processed foods with chemicals that make you think that the foods taste better than they are. So what they're trying to do is to create a memory of their foods for years. They're trying to create a memory in your brain of these foods. And what they're really going after are your smell. It's the smell that creates memory, not taste. You basically don't have a lot of taste because salt, sugar, bitter, sour, those are tastes. But your smell, which is called the olfactory, that's a new word you learn, olfactory, in your brain, they make you remember these smells and they spray them on the foods. In that particular part of your brain, which also controls time, perception, attention, consciousness, emotion. But the emotions they're going after is smell, which was going to create a loyalty over God's foods. You're going to create a loyalty over the foods from God's table, so that you're going to go, so you're going to go buy those. So what these flavorists do is they take foods from God's table, they steal them, and study the aromas of foods. For example, lemon or apple or grape. Those are chemicals in foods from God's table, and they isolate them, and then they make a copy of them and they synthesize them. But with God's foods, you don't want to separate anything. You're supposed to eat the whole grape, eat the whole banana. You eat the whole fruit or vegetable. So they're tampering with the foods on God's table. So when they do this, the health and well-being basically of the consumer is never taken into consideration, whether this is good or bad. But obviously you know that this is not good. Because once you tamper with that food, you kill that food. And so you're producing another life form, or excuse me, not another life form, another food that is actually just dead. It's not living. We will get into this a little more later on exactly how they're doing this. But we do know these flavorists are making about 10,000 new processed food every year. 10,000 new foods per year. That's unfreaking believable. 10,000. And we think they're foods. They're better than God's foods, right? I want to show you some very interesting information about foods in nature on God's table. And if you look at the word signature, and you see two words in there, it says sign of nature. So when you sign your name, that is your signature. That is you. So nature has its own signature. This is where you get this, called sign of nature. Like for instance, if you look at a tomato, you see that tomato there. Actually, let's see what a tomato says. It says a tomato has 4 chambers and is red. The heart is red and has 4 chambers. All of the research shows tomatoes are indeed pure heart and blood food. And let's look at the heart. Let's look at the tomato. There it is. You see? It's 4 chambers. Our heart has 4 chambers. 2 atriums, 2 ventricles. That's how people knew 1,000 years ago how the foods, what they should be eating. It's a sign of nature, but they knew that. Let's look at another one. Let's look at a walnut. It said a walnut looks like a little brain, a left and a right hemisphere, upper cerebrums and lower cerebellums. Even the wrinkles or folds are on the nut, just like the neocortex of the brain. We now know that walnuts help develop over 3 dozen neurotransmitters for brain function. And if you look at the walnut, it looks just like a brain. That is incredible. I love this. And there's a lot of them. We'll go through a lot of these, but it's incredible. So I want you to understand that these people believe they are above God. That's what they think. And we just go along and follow on what they do. You eat this, and they will go eat it. In order to lose weight, you have to separate yourselves from this drama. Once you separate yourselves from the drama, your weight comes off. So this program, I'm going to show you and try to get you to separate yourselves and get on a program where you're eating most foods of God's table, and you're trying to break away from these devils who don't care about you. So if they're putting harmful things in your food, why would you buy them? Why would you buy these foods? We're going to do I think we're going to do another series. We're going to talk about these God's foods a little more. I think we're going to have to do that the next term. I want to show you some more things about what they're doing, exactly what they're doing. They're tampering with the foods from God's table and fooling us and saying that they're real foods. That's what they're doing. Everybody with me? That's all I have to say today. Download the program. Subscribe. I don't ask you to subscribe enough. Watch me on the Undercover Nutritionist. I've got my video stuff together now, so I'm going to be in the stores all the time, just showing you some quick clips of what's going on in these stores. So everyone, enjoy your blessings. I'm out.